All right, today's mini lesson is on mass and volume. So we're going to talk specifically about what mass is. We're going to talk specifically about what volume is. So just for today's vocabulary, you can see the past vocabulary from this week at the bottom of the page. At the top of the page is the two vocabulary words for today, mass and volume. And you're going to be like, well, this is familiar because we studied measuring mass and volume last week. But when we're talking about mass and volume today, we're talking about the property of matter. And we'll go into properties of matter in a minute. Mass is the amount of matter, or the number of atoms, how much stuff the substance has. So if I'm talking about this pen, the mass is the number of atoms that make up this pen. It's how much stuff is there. And only one thing can take up that space, okay? So I can't put this pen in place of this pen because they can't go in the same place because that matter takes up that space. So mass is the amount of matter. Volume is the space that matter takes up, okay? So that's the basics of it. Let's talk about physical and chemical properties. Now, you need to know that all matter, so remember this is matter, all matter has physical and chemical properties. Now, chemical properties, there's a lot of different chemical properties. There's a malleability, that's how easily it bends. There's flammability, that's how easily it catches fire. And there's a lot of different chemical properties. Well, magnetism is a chemical property. Well, this is, although this is metal, this is a non-magnetic metal, so it doesn't magnet to this. You can't magnet to that. Okay, so some chemical properties matter has, and then some chemical properties it doesn't have, and other things have that property. So the chemical properties are not always the same for different types of matter. So you got this piece of matter and this piece of matter, and this one, because actually let's use this because I just told you that that's not magnetic. This piece of matter and this piece of matter, and if this metal is magnetic and it holds to a magnet, this plastic is not. So this has magnetism, this one does not. So the chemical properties are things that they can have some of, or they cannot have some of. It just kind of mix and match. We're not going to talk about chemical properties in detail this in 6th grade. You'll get to that in 8th grade. We're going to spend our time talking about physical properties. And there are 7 major physical properties. There are some other ones as well, but we're going to talk about 7 of them during this unit. Today, we're going to talk about 2 of those 7. Okay, so we're going to study the physical properties of matter. And physical property just means it's something we can see, it's something we can measure. Okay, something we can see, something we can measure. Now, mass and volume are 2 of those things that we can see and we can measure. So these are the 2 properties, mass and volume, that every atom has. Every piece of matter has mass. Every piece of matter has volume. That includes gases, air, oxygen, hydrogen. They have mass and they have volume. Okay, and we'll talk more about that when we get to gases next week. Now, the measurement of mass is how many atoms there are in whatever your substance is. Okay, and we're going to deal in pure substances, and what that means is, looking at the periodic table behind me, these are pure substances. A pure substance is a substance made up of just one type of atom. If I just say substance, I mean things that could have more than one. This has wood atoms. This has metal atoms in it. So this is a substance. The picture on the screen is of gold nuggets. Okay, gold AU. Right there, number 79. It is a pure substance. Okay, so we're going to talk about pure substances. That's where our focus is going to be, on pure substances. So if we're talking about the mass of a pure substance, the mass is the measurement of how many atoms that it has. Well, the number of atoms depends on how much of it there is. So if you look at the picture, we've got on that top row, we've got very little particles of gold, and then on that bottom row, we have big chunks of gold. Okay? So on the top row, the very little particles of gold, there's just a little bit of gold there, right? It's just a very small amount, which means that its mass is going to be very small. The big chunks on the bottom, there's a lot of gold there, so the mass is going to be very large. And as you go through those other two rows, it's a little smaller on the next row up, and then even smaller on the next row up, and then the top row is the smallest. So if we're looking at this map or at this picture, we can look at this picture. We don't have to actually do the measurement of mass, but we can say, okay, the bottom row, because we know this is all gold, this is all a pure substance, the same pure substance. We know that that bottom row is going to have the largest mass. We know that the second row is going to have a little bit less mass. The third row is a little bit less. And the top row is going to have the least amount of mass. Okay, so that's mass. It's not hard. It's how many atoms it has or how much matter it has. When I say matter, just think all things, living and non-living, rocks, people, animals. Okay, that's all matter. Now we get to volume, and we go back to our study of how to measure volume yesterday or last week. We talk about how much space does the atoms take up. Well, in the first picture, the water takes up the bottom part of that graduated cylinder, right? 20 milliliters, we said. When we add that rock, that water still takes up its 20 milliliters, but now the rock is filling up some more space. Now, the rock is not in the same space as the water. The rock moves the water out of the way, which causes the water to rise. So here we've got the water, the 20 milliliters of water, and according to the graduated cylinder, the rock is also 20 milliliters. So the two of them together make 40 milliliters of space. So mass is the mass is the amount of matter, the amount of atoms. Volume is how much space those atoms take up. Okay, so if we jump back up here to the gold, which row has the largest volume? Just by looking at it. We're not going to measure it, just largest versus smallest. Bottom row, because it takes up more space. Those big chunks take up more space than those little bitty chips on the top. Okay, so that's mass and that's volume. Now, let's have a quick conversation about today's work, just so you know what you need to be doing today. All right, Wednesday, September 16th, here is the objective. You're going to be doing a gizmo that determines mass and volume, and I'm going to explain that in just a second. Make sure you do your warm-up here. Here's your writing prompt. How many elements are there, and what does each atom of carbon have in common? So you're going to talk about that in your warm-up. Of course, this right here, mini lesson, is where this video will be located. Now, you're going to click this mass and volume link, and when you do, it's going to open this density lab, and you notice that there's a 5-minute timer up here at the top. Okay? There's a 5-minute timer up here at the top. So you've got 5 minutes to be able to play with this. Okay? So you want to make sure that you don't open this until you're ready to start using it, because once that 5 minutes is up, it's gone and you're not going to be able to use it. So you're going to, in a minute, you're going to click that volume, mass and volume gizmo. You're going to open that. Before you do that, you need to get this recording document opened up. So you're going to click mass and volume recording document. You're going to make a copy. We're going to follow our normal procedures when we're doing this assignment, this type of assignment. Once it opens, up here at the top where it says copy of, you're going to delete copy of, and you're going to put your last name there. Now you've got your document to be able to fill in for the assignment. Okay, make a copy, replace copy of with your last name, record your data as you complete the tab. Okay, so what you're going to do is when you click on that mass volume link, let me pull this up here. You're going to have 5 minutes. You're going to pick 7 of these. That's going to be volume. Remember we talked about the irregular solids discovering the volume. And then there's your scale so you can figure out the mass. So you're going to write down on your track, on your recording document, the number of the item. So I did number 7, the mass of the item, and make sure you include the unit. So 2 grams. And then the volume, 21 milliliters. So make sure you're recording that. You're going to do 7 items. You got 5 minutes to do 7 items. You should be able to complete that task. When you have done that, you'll click the close button on the gizmo, and then you can go to submit the assignment. Here, once you get done with your 7 items, you will submit the document to the mass volume assignment. You'll click that. You'll click submit assignment. You'll click Google Drive tab. In the type mass in the search bar, choose the one with your last name, click link, and then submit again. So that kind of walks you through the step of submitting. Do not forget to reply to yourself. Do not forget to reply to yourself in the exit ticket and answer these 2 questions. If you have any other questions, you can go ahead and ask me in class, or you can send me a message on Canvas or email. Have a great day.